ECT's info session. My name is Kumo, and I am a course advisor for ECT. I'd like to turn your attention to the notifications and the sound. So if you could please turn those off in the interim while the webinar is going on. This is just to minimize any sort of disruptions that may occur during the webinar. And I'd also like to inform you that we do have a Q&A function, so you can pose your questions in that box, and we will answer them closer to the end of the webinar. So just to give you guys a little bit of information about ECT, for those of you who may not be aware what ECT is all about. So ECT is an engineering specialist, and we offer industry-driven programs with UK recognized education. And that's all made possible by our lecturers and instructors, sorry, as well as our unique delivery model. So for today's event, if you could just follow my instructions. So we have a seamless presentation. And secondly, I'd like to notify you that for this webinar, there will be no certificate of attendance, as it is a info session and not a technical webinar. So if you guys need to ask any questions about specific courses or anything like that, I have included my email in the chat box, so you don't have to put in your personal information on the chat. And I'd like to introduce you guys to Misha Rose, who is the head of our college, and she will be taking us through today's presentation. So Misha, if you don't mind, you can take control and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as Kumo said, my name is Misha Rose. I'm head of college at ECT. A little bit about me. So I have worked in the higher education sector now for about 11 years and worked across the entire student journey. So right from I started in admissions, funnily enough, which is why I'm delivering the presentation today, right through to student support, student experience, and now more into the operational and institutional head role. So I'm really passionate about creating people-focused solutions, streamlined processes, making things as easy as possible for applicants and students so that you can have the best experience right from the start of your relationship with ECT. And that's what we're looking at today, is that admissions process, the application process, and how you can easily apply to our courses and our programs in the most sort of efficient way possible. So in the webinar today, then, we'll be looking at a few areas. So looking at the application process itself, what you need, what we do, timeframes, diving into a little bit more detail in terms of the documentation to support your application and what we use to actually assess those applications and how we do it. We'll also be looking through the offer letter that you get from us. It's a nice hefty 4-page document, but I'll be talking you through the different parts, why they're in there and what they mean. And then we'll be looking at more sort of practical tips in terms of applying, the support that's available, and some of the other optional programs and short courses that we run as an institution. We won't be able to go through, it's worth noting, any specific entry requirements for your particular circumstances, your particular countries, your experience. I'll be talking very general today. If you have those questions, it's always best to direct them to our admissions team, and we'll give out the email address probably in the chat for you to be able to do that. And as Kumo said, we can talk about generic questions in the Q&A, but if there's anything specific, for your data protection purposes, I would put that through to our admissions team rather than discussing it openly in this webinar today. But we can talk about general circumstances, general questions, or general sort of background in terms of our programs. So getting down to our specific application process for ECT then. So we're quite unique in the fact that we have the role of course advisor, colleagues such as Kumo, who you've just met, who are there to guide you through the entire process. So they can discuss your goals with you, look at the eligibility for our range of programs, whether that's our higher education programs or whether that's our more professional based competency programs. And they'll discuss which program is right for you and which route it is best for you to take. The next step in the process is for you to gather supporting documents. So as I've said, there is supporting documentation that is required for us to be able to consider you as an applicant for ECT and to give us all the information that we need to make sure that you're eligible for the programme and that we set you up to succeed. So that can range from gathering your academic transcripts from previous institutions. It might be getting identity documentation, which we need for every applicant, or it could be other evidence, which we can come into more depth later on, but it could be something like your CV, resumes, recognition letters. The vital step then in the whole process is obviously submitting your application. So our application form is a direct application form and it's available on our website. And what that does is it captures all the critical information that we need from you to be able to consider you for a program. So it will be things like your contact details, it'll be which program you're interested in. Also through the application form, that's where you submit your supporting documentation. So it's a good idea to have all of that ready for when you're submitting that application, because you can do it all at once and submit a complete application form. Once you've submitted that application form, it's then about looking at what other opportunities are available through ECT for you as a student. So that could be our recognition of prior learning. And what that is looking at if you've done previous study elsewhere and whether that maps to our programs, and then that allows us to award you credit, which means you don't have to study that module or that part of the course, and we give you credit because we know you've done it previously and you've done it elsewhere. And we have a range of financial support options available to you in things such as scholarships. So we have scholarships for our new students and also our existing students. So it's always worthwhile having a look through those and seeing which ones you may be eligible for or which ones you want to submit an application to. So getting into the documentation.
Sorry, Misha, would you like to take control of the presentation so you can skip as you're going?
Can you not? I'm skipping it on my side. Are you not skipping it to yours?
It's not synchronized like that. So I think you would have to
let me take control.
There we go.
Sorry about that, everyone. I thought you could see what I was seeing. Now can you see what I'm seeing?
Yes, ma'am. Perfect.
Perfect. So that's the slide that I just spoke through. So the course advisor step, preparing supporting documents, submitting the application via the website, and then going through the RPL and the scholarship opportunities that may be available to you. So then in terms of what documents you need, and we'll have a look at a bit more depth at the documentation. So as I said, every applicant needs to provide proof of identity. You would do this in any institution, but particularly it's important for us because we're an online institution. So for some students, we may never meet in person. So it's really important that we have that proof of identity. And we make sure that we've got your identity documents on record. So that could be any valid photo identification, usually a passport, could be a driving license, or could be a national ID card. We also ask for an up-to-date CV and a resume because we are dealing with programs that are linked to industry and also driven by industry. It's really common for our applicants to be able to be accepted based on their professional experience. So if you're looking to apply with your professional experience and your past work history, then that's what that CV does, and it allows us to look at what you've done in your career so far and that could map over to a program at ECT. We also ask for any academic transcripts. So that would be previous study, whether that is during school. So it could be your statutory qualifications, or it could be when you've gone into higher education. So that might be if you've done a university degree before or a master's degree before. We would want to see your academic transcripts and look at what you've studied. And then that would be accompanied by your qualification certificate. So obviously you get a certificate for any qualifications that you've achieved, whether that be, again, just degree certificates, it could be exam certificates, it could be diplomas. We'd want to see copies of those to back up with those academic transcripts and to show us when you actually achieved that award. All of our courses are taught in English. So for students that first language is not English, we do need to see evidence of English language proficiency. Now this can be varied, and obviously it can vary from country to country. So that link there links through to our website, which has the full list of all of our evidence and requirements for English language proficiency. So if you are applying and your first language is not English, it is worth looking through that list to make sure that you've got evidence of one of those requirements there. So once you've submitted all your documents and you've given us everything you need, what do we then do with it? How do we assess an application? So first things first, we will look at your academic qualifications. So all of the programs have entry requirements that are based on academic qualifications, and they are across the world as well. So because we are a global institution, we're not just asking for, our UK-based qualifications. We will be looking and accepting qualifications from across the world. So they're the first ones that we will look at. We will map them to the UK equivalent and make sure that they meet our program requirements. We also will then be looking at your professional and industry experience, and that's where your CV and your resume comes in, and it's a really important document to provide us with, because as I've said, if you're already working in industry, there may be some skills or some knowledge that we can map across to our programs and allow you entry based on your previous experience. And then the other part that we always assess is the English language. So if your first language is English and you've done qualifications in English, then obviously we will assess it based on that. But there may be additional evidence that you need to provide to show that you have English language proficiency, so that you can actually, succeed in the English talk course. So getting into the actual assessment process then, and the steps that we take to assess your applications. So once your application is received, it's always looked at and assessed by our admissions team. So they have a look at the application information that you've provided through the form on the website, and then they will also check through the supporting documentation. They'll have an initial look at those documents and do an initial assessment. So if you've provided everything that we need, then we will look at your qualifications, your experience, your English language proficiency, and then map that against the eligibility for your chosen programme. So if you're unsure on whether you meet the requirements for the programme, you can map that yourself online through the programme website or program pages on the website, and you can also ask for advice from our admissions team before you submit the application, so that we can give you the sort of initial assessment on based on the documentation that you have. If when we go through your application we find that there's anything missing, or that we may need some further clarification on your previous study or your previous professional experience, then we'll contact you. So it's usually via email, can be via phone, and we will contact you with exactly what we need. So it'll either be questions for you to answer, or it will be requests for further documentation that we need to see in order to assess your application entirely. Then the admissions team will actually do the assessment and make the decision based on your application and the requirements for your chosen programme. So they will map through, and then they will provide you a decision in writing, usually via email. So if you've been successful, then you receive a password protected offer letter, which gives you all of the information that you need about your programme, about fees, about us as an institution, about processes that are applicable to you as an applicant. And then it will also outline the next steps that you need to take in order to actually start with ECT. And like I said, we will come on to that offer letter deep dive in just a second. So a little bit about application timeframes. So we assess applications and process applications on a rolling basis. We are a multi-intake institution, which means that we have multiple intakes for all of our programs, and I'll show you those later on in the presentation. So we're constantly reviewing applications. We don't have just a period of time that we're doing it. We do have application cut-off times for our intakes. And the reason for that is just to ensure that you have enough time between actually submitting your application and getting your decision and starting the course. Through the year, we usually say an application will take up to 21 working days to review and process, although if the application is full and complete, we do tend to find that speeds things up a little bit. We also, as I said, have those cut-off dates, and they're usually about 4 weeks before the start of an intake. And again, that's just to make sure that you've got enough time to get everything together, and that we've got enough time to provide you the information you need in order to start the course. Complete applications always help avoid delays. So as I've said earlier, there are that list of documentations. There is a checklist of documents that you need for an application on our website. It's always best to try and gather those application or those supporting documents, sorry, before you submit your application or before you start your application, because it's all in one go. So if you've got all of the documents handy, then you can submit them at the same time with the application and submit a complete application. That stops the back and forth between us and and you as the applicant to try and gather more information or clarification. If those additional checks or additional clarification is required, then that just means your application processing time may take a little bit longer. And that's just because obviously we have to come back to you via email, you have to get us the documents. It can just take a little bit of time to get through that process. But we will keep you informed throughout the entire process. So if there is things that we need, if there's questions that we have, then the admissions team will be constantly in touch to provide you with those regular updates or to get through the application decision to you once it's made. They are also there for you to get in contact with them and find out where your application is in the process, how long you think it's going to take, and you know, just to get those regular updates if we haven't been in touch proactively. So next is the deep dive into the offer letter then. So as I said earlier, it's a lovely 4-page document. I think it's about 4 pages, and it's got everything that you need to know in the offer letter before you accept your place at ECT and join the course. The offer letter also is the first start of what we call the student contract. So as an applicant and as a student with ECT, you enter into a student contract, and this offer letter is the first part of that contract. So it's your first official documentation from ECT with all of the terms and conditions, the information that you need to actually decide that you want to come and sign up to coming. So on the first page on the left-hand side is the offer itself. So you will get the date of issue, which will be the date that it is sent to you, and then you have a response due date. If you are applying before the application cutoff date, then this is usually about 4 weeks. We give you 4 weeks to make a decision and respond to your offer. Gives you enough time to digest the information in the offer letter, to make sure that you 100% want to come to ECT, sort out your funding, etc. And then that just gives you that window. Doesn't mean that you have to take that long to accept the offer, but it's there for you to consider all of your options and make that informed choice. The rest of that first page is the offer itself then. So you'll have your personal details at the top that you will have supplied to us during your application. We then issue you with a student ID number, which will follow you through your time at ECT. So that's a really key number that you need to take note of. In the enrolment details, that will talk about the program that you've applied for. So we give you the program title and the program code, which is internal, but it's worth knowing because that will be what's on your student record. We also put in there the type of attendance. So all of our study is online. We don't have any face-to-face study at the moment, but we do offer both full-time and part-time courses. And the difference between that is the intensity at which you study your modules. So for part-time students, for example, if you were studying an undergraduate bachelor's degree, for part-time that takes 6 years. You do 2 study periods a year or 2 semesters a year, and you would do 2 modules per semester. So that's why it's the part-time. If you were doing the full-time equivalent, it would be a 3-year course. You would still do 2 semesters per academic year, but you would study 4 modules each semester. So you can see the intensity goes up obviously with the full-time mode of study. In that enrolment details, we also give you your program start date. So that will have been the intake that you signed up for during your application. And as I said, we do multiple intakes. So you can apply for future intakes as well as the one that's coming up. And there will also be your program, your anticipated program end date. Now, as I've said, you will be signing up for a full-time or a part-time course, and there is an expected end date on that program. So that would be 3 years for full-time, 6 years for part-time for undergraduate, 1 year full-time, 2 years part-time for postgraduate masters. But that is an expected end date. As you go through your program, things can happen. Everyone has lives. There might be some delays in your program if you get into reassessments, which we hope you don't get into. So we always give you the expected end date, but that can be flexible and that can change depending on what path you follow while you're at ECT. The other part of this this offer letter then is the conditions of offer. So when you apply, depending on what you submit to us, so it might be that you are still studying your qualification and you're not due to finish until just before your intake date. You would then get a conditional offer asking you to provide proof that you had gained the qualification that you're currently studying. So that would be a conditional offer. If you have done all of your qualifications, you've submitted your CV and there's nothing outstanding, then you are more than likely to get an unconditional offer. And that means that no other further documentation is required from you for you to actually be able to give you your offer and enroll with ECT. So in that conditions of offer box, there will be the conditions for you specifically, and it's individual to your circumstances and your background and qualifications. Now, in this version of the offer letter, you will see on the very bottom is the scholarship information. This isn't on every single offer letter anymore because scholarships have their own application process. But if you had applied for a scholarship really proactively, you may be given details in the offer letter of your scholarship, what it means, what discounts you would get, and how long that lasts for across your program. So you may get an offer letter with those details, or if you do apply for a scholarship, you may get a separate scholarship letter with all of the details for that piece of the scholarship itself. On the right hand side then is probably page 2 or part of page 2, and this talks about the mandatory practical requirements for graduation. So as you can see, this template here is a Bachelor BEng offer letter. We do have equivalents for our masters, which is the same information but just related to the masters. So both of our types of courses, both our undergraduate and our postgraduate, have mandatory elements that are non-credit bearing. So that means that you don't actually attend classes and you don't get any credit for them, but they are compulsory components for the program itself. So you cannot graduate unless you have completed these components. So we had to tell you about these up front. All the information, if you've looked through our website, is already there as well. So it is just a repetition of what the program entails. But as I said earlier, this does form part of the contract. So you need to make sure that you understand this, you understand the requirements of these mandatory components and what is expected of you as a student. So what these components are is a set of mandatory workshops. So for bachelor students, that is 4 workshops across the length of your program. For master's students, that is 1 workshop across the length of your program. What these are hands-on workshops. So these are the practical elements of your engineering degree. What you will find in other institutions is practical elements of an engineering degree are crucial in giving you a usable and industry-led engineering degree. It's fine to be doing all of your program study and your modules in theory, but unless you can actually apply that in real-world situations, it won't really help you in your careers. So that's why we've introduced these hands-on workshops, where you would complete hands-on activities all set out in these different workshops with different focuses that show that you can apply your theoretical knowledge in practice. These are done in person. So if you are not working in industry, then you would be expected to attend either the ECT campus in the UK or the EIT campuses in either Australia or South Africa to complete these hands-on workshops, and the equipment would be there in labs for you to complete the activities. Each workshop is 1 week long. So you would need to go and stay in the country that you would complete in the workshops and complete these activities. You would be supervised and it would all get ticked off. There are 4 workshops for bachelor programs, as I said. 3 of those are those physical ones that you need to go to one of the campuses to actually complete. And one of them is a virtual one, which obviously means you can do it from home. And it's based on project management. For the master's programs, it's just that 1 virtual workshop that is required as part of the program. So it's an important part of the program itself, and that's why this is in the offer letter. These are also eligible for RPL. So we spoke about recognition of prior learning earlier. So if you're already working in industry, there's a really good chance that we can give you credit for or give you the sign off for these components based on the work that you're already doing, which means you don't have to go to any one of the campuses. The information is there because they are mandatory parts of the course. The other part of the mandatory part of the course is the professional experience. So that is the 240 hours of professional experience. So that's working in industry, again, across the length of your course. So you have the entire duration of your program to do it, but it does need to be done because it's another mandatory part of the course. Again, if you're working in industry, that can be through your current role. If you're not working in industry, then we would look at placements for you. So that's that part of the offer letter. It's there because they're mandatory and you have to do it in order to graduate. The next part of the offer letter then is looking at the fees. So obviously we charge fees for our courses, and so we tell you up front what the fees for the programs are. It's worth noting in this part of the offer letter that you will see that the fee is quoted for the current academic year that you are due to start. That's because tuition fees may be reviewed annually. They are subject to change academic year to academic year, and you will only get invoiced at the start of your course for one academic year. You receive a new invoice for each new academic year that you start with ECT. So the fees in the offer letter will be for the coming academic year. You'll also see that we spell it out per module and per academic year, which is one of our payment plans, but actually you'll get the invoice for the full academic year because that's how we invoice. It also talks about the options for payment, and if you choose to fund, if you were based in the UK, for example, if you chose to fund your courses through the student loans company, then it gives you some information there about what that means and any terms and conditions. On the next page on the right hand side, it talks about any additional fees that may come as part of your programme. So as I've said, the tuition fees can be reviewed annually. There might also be some additional fees across the programme depending on the pathway that you follow. So if you apply for RPL, the recognition of prior learning, there's a fee for that. If you wanted to get a transcript before you graduated, there's a fee for that. And then it talks through the fees that are associated with those mandatory components that I talked about in terms of the workshops and the virtual the placements as well. So all of those are detailed in your offer letter, so you have all the information up front to make an informed decision on starting with ECT. The final bit of that page of the letter is talking about the computer specifications that we recommend that you have if you are doing a program at ECT. So as we are an online provider, all of our teaching is delivered online. We do have certain computer specifications or digital specifications that you need to meet in order to make sure that you have everything that you need to be successful on the course. We wouldn't want to set you up to fail, so we like to put this up front, so again you can make that informed decision as you're looking to accept your offer. And then coming on, I think, to the final pages, I did tell you it was a hefty document. We give you a little bit more information about the recognition of prior learning. So as I've said, you can apply for that for previous study that you've done elsewhere in order to get credit towards modules for our ECT programs. But you can also apply via RPL for those mandatory components in the workshops and the professional placements as well. So we give you the information up front as to what that looks like and direct you to a policy that's on our website that talks about the requirements and also the processes for that. As we're a UK institution, we also have a calling off period. So you have a right to cancel your acceptance of your offer or your place on a course within the first 14 calendar days of your enrolment date. So if you chose to accept your offer and then you decided to pull out, you have the right to do that right up to a start date. If you then enroll with ECT, from the point of enrolment, you have another 14 calendar days that you can cancel your enrolment with no financial penalty. So we're just telling you about your rights and things up front. We also talk about your use of personal data. So we are obviously fully compliant with EU and UK GDPR. And this just talks about how we use your personal data within the institution and gives you our legal obligations for doing so. There is also a complaints and appeals, although we hope you never have to use those processes, but there are complaints and appeals processes for applicants. So if you were ever unhappy with the service that you received or the decision that you received as part of your offer, then there are appropriate processes to follow. But we would hope that we would be able to support you through any of those queries or questions before it got to the point of a complaint or appeal. And then the final bit there is all about accepting your offer and the process to do it. So it talks about reviewing your offer, the important parts of the offer letter that we've just gone over. It then talks about completing and submitting your acceptance form. So what that does is you'll see the link at the bottom that says your acceptance. You click on that, it takes you to your acceptance form, and that is you signing up and accepting your offer formally and telling us that you intend to enroll with ECT, which is the exciting bit. So in order to actually finalise your offer and accept your offer, you do need to complete that acceptance form. Otherwise, we won't know that you definitely want to come to ECT, and obviously we want to know. And then we can prepare you for your enrolment at a later date. So some tips then for a smooth application process. As I said earlier, reach out if you need support. We have course advisors such as Kumo, and we have our admissions team based at ECT that are there for literally any question, and no question is stupid. You can ask however many questions you like, any type of question, because we are there to support you through the whole application process, both before you've submitted your application and after you've submitted your application. Get your documents ready and together early. Oh, I've just skipped well ahead. Get your documentation ready early. So we've gone through in this presentation documents that you need, but there are also information on our website. So make sure that you've gathered that list of documents, you've got it saved in a folder before you even click on the application form on the website, because then you can easily upload them, and it means that your application will be processed quicker because it's complete and we don't need to keep going back to you with further questions. And as I said earlier, try and apply as soon as possible. We do process on a rolling basis. We do process right up until our cut-off point. But in order to secure your place and to get everything set up and to make sure that you can be as prepared as possible, then we would always encourage you to apply early. We will then provide you with regular updates and information between the point that you accept your offer and the point that you're enrolling. So you'll be kept informed of where you are in the process, how long you've got to wait, and things that you can do in order to prepare for your start of your programme. And that is everything on the admissions process. Final few points then is around our upcoming programme. So as I've said, we do multiple intakes across the year for all of our programmes, and you can see them here. So for our undergraduate bachelor courses, we have 2 intakes, one in September and one in February. And then for our masters or our postgraduate programmes, we have 3 intakes, so October, February and June. So we can accept applications for all of them. So if you're not quite ready to start in September, October, we can look at the February and the June applications and get you ready and set up for the intake that is most suitable for you. We also run a suite of professional certificates through our affiliated institute EIT, or our parent institute. These are 3-month non-accredited professional certificates of competency. So they tend to base on areas of industry that have specific focus, or that are looking for CPD, you know, continuous personal development, if I put my teeth in. So they are specific areas that we look to sort of upskill industry professionals in, or create a level of expertise. So we run those through our affiliated institute EIT, and there's more information on our website about those as well. And then those final few bits, so if you're ready to apply, I would suggest that you speak with our course advisor or our admissions team. They can look at who's the right programme for you, and they can also look at the documentation that you have and give you a bit of a steer on what you may need as additional, or how eligible you are for a course. Get those documentations together before you submit your application, and then submit your application with those documents on the website. As I said, our admissions team is always there to support you, or if you've got any general questions, they are there to be able to support you through those as well. And now it's over to you, and whether we've had any questions or queries that have come up through that.
Yeah, let's just give it a few moments. I'm also putting in some information for them in the chat. I've included the discount for the prof certs. I've included my email as well as the admissions email if they've got any questions for us. And then
Perfect.
we do have a question. So the question is from Raphael and would like to know if there are any financial aid opportunities for students who may have difficulty paying for the course. Could you explain the eligibility requirements and how I can apply? That's the question from Raphael.
Perfect. Thank you, Raphael. Absolutely. So first things first, then we have a number of payment plans that are available for students. So you don't have to pay your fees fully upfront. You can pay them in installments. That can be installments across the semesters or trimesters, so broken down into 2 or 3 payments. Or we go even further and you can pay monthly installments. So that's 10 installments across the academic year. So we can be really flexible in the payment plans that are most suitable for you and your circumstances. The other part of our financial aid, if you will, is our scholarship packages. So we have a number of scholarships available for our new and prospective students, all available on our website, and we'll put the link into the chat so you can go directly to that page. But what that looks at is it does discounts across your study period. So it may be on certain modules, it may be on a set amount of modules, or it may be on a set of study periods. The two I think that we have at the moment is an academic excellence one. So that one will be looking at your previous study, and if you've achieved some really great results in your previous study, then you would meet the eligibility criteria for the academic excellence. And then we also have an Alison Brown Women in Engineering Scholarship, which is for female students, because as everyone I'm sure will be aware that females are a minority in the engineering sector. So in order for us to try and support women in engineering, we have the Alison Brown Engineering Scholarship. So those are the two that are currently available. We're always reviewing those and seeing if there's a need for other scholarships, so I would keep an eye on that page. But certainly if you meet the eligibility criteria for one or both of those, and then we can look at that application for you and process it at the same time as your program application.
Thank you, Misha. So I'm just checking if we've got any other questions. Nothing there. So I've included our website link. I've included a link as well for the upcoming ECT event. So those are our webinars and basically our info sessions like the one we've had today. And then I've included the admissions email if you've got any questions with regards to eligibility and how you can apply. I've also included my email, and that's just for anyone who may have any inquiries with regards to our courses and what else we are offering. So all the links are in the chat. Feel free to copy those and reach out when you have a moment.
Fabulous. I think, Raphael, you put your hand up. Do you have another question?
If you do, could you please put in the chat box or in the Q&A box? We'll give you a moment to type your question, no worries. Okay, I could maybe just try and see if I can't enable him to actually use the mic.
It's come up as a comment on the question. I can see it. So the question is, do you offer full scholarships that cover the entire cost of the course? We don't at the moment, no. All of our scholarships are discount for part of the course. We don't offer any full scholarships currently.
Thank you for the question, Raphael.
Okay.
If we don't have any more questions, we can close the session. I have included the information as to how you guys can reach us if you are interested in any of our events or any of our courses. Please feel free to reach out. We're always happy to assist. Thank you so much,
Thank
Misha.
you.
And
Thank you.
thank you to the attendees for making time to join us today. You could have been anywhere else, but you are here with us, so we do appreciate that. And have a lovely day further. Thank you all.
Have a lovely afternoon. Thanks all.